Whoa now. Hey, there we go. That throws me off my game.
Sorry.
Audio only audience. It was just me up on the screen. I'm thinking to myself, was this my channel? What day is it? What time is it? It's Wednesday, and it is just after noon Eastern Standard Time. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside Sarah Ellison. Today we got a lot to discuss, including the bandwagon that is Kenyon Sadiq. Perhaps it is a steam engine bandwagon right now that's pushing forward, and maybe we'll be able to convince some of you out there that maybe aren't already convinced that he would be a heck of a fit in the Lamar Jackson-led offense and a new, of course, Declan Doyle offensive coordinator, first year, expected to have a heavy dosage of tight ends. We're going to discuss that. We'll also talk a little bit about the rumored shakeup, a potential scenario that would have a long-time Raven on the other end of a trade deal and a secondary shakeup. And after that, a number of other things, including Max Crosby addressing, yes, yet again, you, the Ravens flock out there on his latest podcast episode. That will be a quick hit for those of you wondering. You know, ironically, we hadn't heard any from you via email in terms of quick hit gathering based on your preference. So we had to go ahead and form our own quick hits as we do every single day. Great to be with you guys. Like the video if you could on the way in. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Consider becoming a channel member or gift-giving membership. And thanks to Primary Residential Mortgage for continuing to support the program. We'll tell you about our $100 gift card giveaway coming up a little bit later on in the show. And Jake Asman gets us started with the first super chat. Look at him over here. The Jets extraordinaire. The Jets Collective just dropped last night as well. And Jake is a part of that. So congratulations to the new Jets Collective and one of our most loyal, faithful audience members out there. What's up, partner?
What's up? Okay, so Bobby, the headline of this video today, what is it? It's something like, stop sleeping on a new target for Lamar Jackson. And I will tell you, I'm the one who wrote that headline. And in part, I'm writing it to me. I'm writing it to me because you have been trying to get me on this bandwagon. And I just want to say right now, I'm still not saying I would take this person over some top-notch offensive linemen. However, if the board falls certain ways, I am no longer dead set against Kenyon Sadiq at number 14. Now, again, the caveat is that it depends on how the board falls. But when I start thinking about all the things that Kenyon Sadiq could do as a target for Lamar Jackson, I get excited. And Bobby, where I thought we could start on this conversation is I was listening to our friends over on Film Study. And Ken McCusick, I thought, articulated really well why he would like to have Kenyon Sadiq at number 14. And here's what's funny about this. Ken is very well known. If you ever listen to him, we've both been on his show. He's been on ours. If you ever listen to him, he's big on value. And usually tight ends going at number 14, Ken would be somebody like, no, that's crazy. You don't go that high for somebody at a position that isn't valued that high because you could always get it later. Well, for Kenyon Sadiq, he is willing to make an exception to that rule. And here's why.
Hey, I'm extremely excited about this tight end group. The day three players are thick, and they're very, in a lot of ways, they're hard to separate, but in other ways, they are very good relative to past day three groups. There's some flaws. There always are in guys on day three. The other thing that I think would be very interesting, and the Ravens might do, is their first round selection at number 14. There's all kinds of talk about that. There not being a lot of good options and maybe going wide receiver at that point. If they're at number 14, I might just go for Kenyon Sadiq. He effectively is an X receiver in a tight end's way of thinking. He's much bigger, for example, than an AJ Brown, and much more dangerous after the catch and faster. So it's you're talking about a guy who very easily could turn the Ravens back. It blurs the lines completely between 11 and 12 personnel, and I think if he's still there at 14, which he may very well not be, because he's the greatest athlete ever to play tight end. If you want to call him that, then I think the Ravens may well take him. He'd be definitely one of the guys that I would not be upset about if they went away from wide receiver and took him.
Interesting. I've heard mixed reviews on Sadiq. I'm not as excited about him as you are, but it's very interesting to hear you say that, Ken, because you haven't been traditionally somebody that's wanted to go tight end early, or also wanted to maybe go with these hybrid type of players.
Generally hate the idea, but there's two hybrids in this class, both of them who have a tight end tag in a lot of ways, who I think would be perfect. I'm not a big Mekhi Levman guy. I know there are people out there who want that, but he's not my guy. And in fact, I said earlier on this show, I'd just rather draft Kenyon Sadiq because I think he effectively blurs the line so much between 11 and 12 that you can effectively use him as an X receiver on some downs you want to. And you can sure as hell use him in the slot and other places on a more regular basis. So I like him a lot, and we'll see how that works out. He's so far head and shoulders above the rest of the tight ends in this draft. It's not even close. I mean, there's no one even remotely in his league. The next guy I would have a 3rd round grade on.
Excuse me. I think I just have a.
All right. So, Bobby, you were, in terms of this show, you were the first one to say, hey, I wouldn't mind Sadiq at number 14. So let's have you react first. What did you think of Ken's reasoning for being like, yeah, he would be worth number 14?
Did you hear what he said there about like the lofty label of maybe the greatest, most athletic tight end that's ever tested? I mean, that obviously catches your eye and ear. And just take a look at the last 5 years. His next gen stats draft score would back that up. I mean, he's lapping the field here, and there's some pretty talented, still young, and even a fellow classmate of his out of Vanderbilt, Eli Stowers, is on this list, but he clears Stowers, for example, and Bowers, meaning Brock, pretty talented, unbelievably talented tight end in Vegas from just a couple of years ago. He clears them by 7 total points on this athleticism scale by next gen stats. Now, we're going to talk about, because you were the first to be like, well, look, guys have tested really well before in Indianapolis, and it hasn't translated. We've also seen, i.e. Kyle Hamilton, you don't blow the testing out of the water and you go on to have a perennial Pro Bowl type of career every single season, if not all pro, the way that Kyle Hamilton has been able to accomplish. So we'll get to all the production so far at Oregon, and we'll get to the drop rate, and we'll talk about all of this from, a full scope. But strictly speaking to what the Ravens need right now, and I know that they're not going to lean on that in the first round if they continue to stick to their philosophy, which is best player available, but Kenyon could very well fulfill both a need in the tight end room, which we know is only Mark Andrews and Durham Smythe, who they just brought in to be the Charlie Kohler replacement, if you will.
Or if you ask Femi, he's brought in to be the Patrick Ricard. He doesn't even know that he's exactly Charlie Kohler.
Maybe there'll be some nuance there as we learn more about what the schematics will look like with no traditional fullback and a new offensive coordinator. But for right now, we'll wait and see. And so the first part of it is fulfilling a need in the tight end room, and then the second would be, does it fulfill best player available? So I think those are two realistic scenarios. And then when you add on the athleticism, when you add on the yards after the catch, when you add on how well the Ravens' track record looks at drafting and developing at this position, there's a lot to like there. And then you go and turn on the tape, maybe most importantly, and you see a guy that does things that not every tight end can do, and then I think would look pretty darn good in the purple and black.
Well, here's what's also interesting is Ken was hesitating even wanting to label him as a tight end. Like he's like, yeah, he was one of the fastest, tight ends. He's like, if you want to call him that. And so like he talked so much about how he could play this X wide receiver role. And it'll be interesting with Declan Doyle. So Bobby, last year, I believe the Ravens, in terms of 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers on the field, the Ravens were about 20% under the league average. Declan Doyle was right at league average. And so if Declan Doyle is going to have more 11 sets out there, you're going to need more wide receivers. But what Ken is saying here is like, because he can do both, he can be in the slot, he could play X, some of the traditional tight end stuff. And by the way, he's a willing blocker. And he's too big for little guys to tackle, but he's also so fast. We talked about it. I think the fastest 40 among tight ends since 2003. He said it there. He said he's bigger than AJ Brown, but faster than him. And can do a ton after the catch. And so now you're getting to this point where it's like, oh, okay, well, the Ravens might be transitioning to more 11 personnel, but they probably won't forget 12 personnel with Mark Andrews and, of course, Kenyon. And so to be able to move him around and have just this athletic freak, you've got it right there. I have it elsewhere, but like his 40-yard dash. Kenyon Sadiq, 4.39. Guess who he beat? Odell Beckham Jr. at 4.43. 10-yard split. Kenyon Sadiq, 1.54. Deshaun Jackson, 1.55. Vertical jump. Kenyon Sadiq, 43.5. Julio Jones was 38.5. Broad jump. Kenyon Sadiq, 11-1. Andre Johnson, 11 flat. And so, yes, some of this is projecting what he could be. People do act like his numbers at college were nothing. I wouldn't say they're nothing. They're obviously not like 11, 1,000 yards or whatever, but had 51 receptions, 560 yards. It's 11 average. In 2024, it's a 12.8 average. He had 8 touchdowns. And I'll just play some of his highlights so you can get a little taste of what he can do on the field.
Certainly count on Kenyon Sadiq, both as a blocker and as a receiver at tight end.
And a hit and a shed of Sadiq, touchdown!
Effort in the blocking game, look at that tenacity.
Touchdown! Kenyon Sadiq! More end zone, Sadiq, touchdown Ducks!
The NFL guys are going to love him because he's not just a catching, receiving tight end. He likes to block.
End zone, Sadiq to the end zone, Sadiq! He caught it again! It's Sadiq time! It's caught by Sadiq! There's the big play for the... He'll lob it this side. On time by Sadiq. He's got it there. It's Sadiq. Absolute animal. Touchdown Oregon! Kenyon Sadiq! Deep end zone! Touchdown! Kenyon Sadiq! Wow! Look at that athlete play.
Kenyon Sadiq, certainly a great player.
There you go. There you can go. Yes, he will do run blocking. He'll do some of the traditional tight end stuff. He'll go to the slot. He'll go out wide. He can do a little bit of everything. It'd be quite the weapon for Lamar. Now, the discussion becomes, would you take him over maybe some offensive linemen that are sitting there? I don't know that I would. But if certain offensive linemen are gone, I don't think I would hesitate with this pick.
Here he is in Indy with Chris Sims. And this was pre-testing. And we know, as we've already covered here multiple times on the show, he went nuts on testing. But here he is talking versatility.
I like doing a bit of everything. I think it's unique. I just like being versatile because I think there's value in that. Yeah. You know what I mean? If I can block in line or block in the backfield, block on the perimeter, but also create explosive plays as well, I think it helps the team out and it helps myself out. So I think over the past 2 years, you can kind of see my game develop and add pieces each year that have helped myself and the team.
Right. You going to work out this week?
Yep. I'm gonna test. Yeah.
You're going to test? You're doing it all.
Yeah, I'm gonna catch balls at pro day, but I'm gonna test here.
Okay, wow, yeah. I'm impressed by that. I'm actually shocked with how many top players are going through the whole workout.
They're ready to roll. And when you see this guy run, you'll understand why.
Yeah.
I have a pretty good idea what he's going to run. I'm not going to ask him to tell us.
What's your prediction?
4.42.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
I might know some people that know you, and I have a pretty good idea where you're going to fly down the track.
All right,
was that
I'm
close?
Going to ask you. I'm going to ask you. Give me the range. Where do you think? Right?
I think that'll be close.
All right, it's going to be close.
Yeah.
It's going to be in there. Okay, he's hoping for 4.39. That's what that
Let's
means
do it.
right there.
I'd love to see it.
He was hoping for 4.39, and he got 4.39. 4.39 at 6'3", 241 pounds, 31.5-inch arm, 10-inch hand. We talked about the vertical and the broad jumps. The guy's an athletic freak. Connor was wrong. He had him at a 4.42. He says, bet. I'm going to shave off a few milliseconds there. How about it? A few tenths of a second. And he did at 4.39. So you like the confidence. He's very soft-spoken. Anything but when he throws on the helmet and pads.
Yeah.
There's a little snippet of him. That full conversation's on Chris Sims Unbuttoned.
What's funny is I was looking at these other comparisons. His vert was higher than Vince Carter in the NBA. But Bobby, this was interesting because I did, obviously, the first time we talked about this, I was like, no, offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. I still prioritize that. We're talking about needs. I think the interior offensive line is still the one that scares me the most, from guard, center, guard. There's just so much unproven stuff. That being said, I do think tight end is an underrated big need. I wouldn't put it above the interior offensive line, but it is a big need. Mark Andrews, obviously on the back nine of his career. And then you got Smythe, who's a blocker. And Lamar Jackson likes tight ends. He also likes wide receivers. Kenyon can do a little bit of both. And then I went and I was like, I'm curious where Kenyon Sadiq ranks among some of my favorite offensive linemen. And everybody knows that I've talked a lot about Venga Ioane. Okay. And I also would not hate Spencer Fano from Utah because I do like his versatility. He is willing and capable of playing center. And he literally can play all the positions, right tackle, left tackle. He's played. You can plug him in just about everywhere. And so I went over to Daniel Jeremiah's big board where he's got his top 50. And no joke, I go over there. 12, 13, 14 are my three guys. Really your guy that I'm just coming on to. Number 12, he's got Ioane. Number 13, he's got Sadiq. And number 14, he's got Fano. Like three guys that I would all love. Now, if I have all three sitting there, I might trade back. If all three are sitting there, I'm like, sure, I'll trade back a couple spots and pick up an extra, I don't know, third or fourth rounder, and I'll still get one of these guys. And so just because I'd be comfortable with so many of them. Now, I think Fano will be gone first. But it'll be very interesting with Ioane and Sadiq where they could fall. But I do think it's pretty crazy that they're literally 12, 13, 14, the guys that I've been looking at this entire pre-draft season.
Matches up with Bucky Brooks. I had a graphic on here as well that he was taking a look at his 3.0 that dropped recently. And so not all three names are on there, but you do have Vanga at 11, 3 slots before the Ravens would select at 14. You've got Reuben Bain going to Dallas here at 12, 2 spots before Baltimore. And then right before they pick is Mekhi Lemon to the Rams. And Bucky, as many have in recent weeks, mocks Spencer Fano to Baltimore there, the Utah tackle that you just had on the screen a minute ago. So within that realm, you're starting to see somewhat of a consensus start to build. Terms of which names are there. Not all the names are with the corresponding similar selections.
Yeah.
But it's within that realm of 5 or so. And there'll be drops, and I'm sure there'll be changes and spontaneous aspects to opening night. But this is, less than a month out now. Probably not going to change much between now and the 23rd.
Well, one other thing I want to say is I guess the depth of each of these positions in terms of guard, center, and tight end. We've seen, I think it was Dane Brugler, who said that he couldn't find the bottom of the tight end class. So if the Ravens don't get Sadiq, I still have confidence that they'd be able to get other tight ends. Now, Ken, with the soundbite I just played, he said that he's already been through the entire tight end class and he loves the whole thing. And he's excited about even day 2 and even day 3 picks. That being said, he said nobody comes close to Sadiq, which is why he doesn't hate drafting him. And I've said the Ravens could very well draft 2 tight ends. So they could do Sadiq and then they could come back later on day 3 and get another tight end. And that would probably be your future. Now,
and that would make sense.
Yes. Now, that being said, if they don't go Sadiq, they still have a lot of guys on day 2 and 3 that they could get. Now, then I've heard a lot of draft nicks talk about, I think the second round is a sweet spot for guard. If you do go Sadiq and you pass up on the offensive line. And then the third round is a sweet spot for center. And so all three positions, the cupboard isn't bare later on. There are some positions that is just like not a lot going on. But all three of those positions, there's going to be options later on, but it's going to be up to Eric DeCosta to figure out the right puzzle for all of it. And he's also going to have to determine where he thinks all three of these guys could go. Because, again, going and looking at mock drafts, both Ioane and Sadiq feel like they're all over on different mock drafts. Like sometimes I see him going in the 20s. Like there was one that I saw Sadiq go at number 27, but then I've heard other people say maybe he won't even make it to the Ravens. So it feels like it's all over the place. And it's going to be up to Eric DeCosta to figure out what the value of each of these guys are and put together that puzzle based off of his draft board in the second and third days.
Yeah, I'm not feeling as urgent as some in the live chat are about having to use, like, this necessity that seems to be growing within some, that 14 has to be used on fixing the offensive line. And I don't think there has to be a correlation between a lack of urgency about that potential scenario. I don't think there should be a correlation between that and understanding that last year, one of the biggest issues and the weakest links on this team was the interior guard play. Like, I don't think those, like, both things can be true. I don't think that they have to be hamstrung by fixing that at 14, but I also am very aware of what went wrong for them last year. And based on what you've just outlined, as we've discussed in recent weeks, you can still address that in rounds 2 through 7. And you have 10 total picks to do so. And oh, by the way, you brought in an upgrade. Yes, it's not the noteworthy upgrade that some wanted, but John Simpson is an upgrade. He's got to figure out some of the pre-snap penalties, and he'll have to get that cleaned up and disciplined if indeed he is the shoe-in starter, which that contract maybe would suggest he would be. And then you got guys that are going to be competing, you would think. Whether that's whether that's Voorhees, whether that's Emory Jones, and whoever you bring in between now and camp from a latter half of free agency standpoint, on top of inevitably when you bring in at least one guard throughout the weekend. So I just don't have that same level of urgency. And I'm wondering if a part of that is just, and I can't remember who asked us this the other day. Who did we have on who asked us this? But they were basically like, do you kind of have PTSD, or are you overreacting to what
Coach Coleman?
Coach Derek Coleman. I thought that was such a great question to ask and look inward. And maybe folks in the live chat who do feel this urgency will ask themselves that, just to confirm, just to reaffirm that they aren't overreacting to what took place a year ago. Because I do think that you can fix it, and fix it more than just adequately, but effectively, outside of having to use that type of draft capital on a guard.
Well, if you'll recall, because I hear what you're saying, which is why I've been more open to Sadiq. So I definitely hear what you're saying. I still slightly am like with the chat a little bit, because you'll recall that my answer to Coach when he asked that was, actually, I don't think we're overreacting, because not only was it that bad, but Simpson isn't that great of an upgrade. And oh, by the way, you lost your all-pro center to add to the problem. So
center's okay, keep going.
Right? So I'm talking about the interior of the offensive line. The problem has grown.
Center guard.
Yes, the problem has grown, not gotten better. And so you have a subtle upgrade from Simpson over Fa'alele. Maybe it's more than subtle. We'll find out. But based off their PFF grading, they were actually kind of close. Which is, PFF is not the end-all be-all. So that's why I'm still saying it'll be an upgrade. So you have an upgrade there. You have a big downgrade unless you use a draft pick like on Fano, and then you're feeling a little bit better. He's still young and inexperienced, but it's like, okay, but hopefully he can grow quickly. And then you still have inexperience over at left guard, and Voorhees is still in that competition with Emory Jones. And so again, the situation has gotten worse. So I don't see how you could overreact to that. Now, to your point, does that mean you absolutely hands down only can take an offensive lineman at number 14? No. But if you had Ioane and Fano sitting there, I think I would still take one of those two guys over Sadiq.
Yeah, I get that. I think when I was listening to Coach Coleman it was are folks overreacting solely by putting themselves in a box for 14?
Got you.
Right?
That's fair.
Right? Not the big picture. Clearly, there's no overreaction necessary or too light in terms of what should be one of the biggest priorities from a team building and tweaking standpoint this offseason. It's, hey, why put them in a box at 14 for that purpose? So
in the draft, you can never put yourself in a box.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, you're drafting out of fear rather than smart analysis and projecting.
Yeah. And hey, look, they have successfully found, come the weekend, Friday, Saturday, for example, either developmental or right out of the gate starters before on the interior. Mm-hmm. Somebody that comes to mind, and we could go through a whole list maybe in the coming weeks ahead as we come up with more examples, but somebody that immediately comes to mind and got a nice payday a couple of years ago to go to Denver is Ben Powers, who was a guard for them that they developed really well. So it has happened before, and they are capable of doing it again. We don't know what Dwayne Ledford will be, but if we want to hang our hat on something, his track record's a pretty darn good hook to hang it on.
It's a good track record. Sometimes I wonder if you're asking him to turn wine into water or water into wine, or vice versa. Either way,
maybe
it's he's good, but can he take Emory Jones and Corey Bullock and John Simpson and turn them into, I don't know, Pro Bowlers? I don't know.
Probably not.
I think he's good, but. And I think Lamar needs a Pro Bowler in there. I think he needs a very good offensive line. I do. Although I will ask you this real quick, Bobby. I know you're about to do a read. Okay, would you agree that interior offensive line is the biggest need? Not saying that has to be 14. Would you agree that's the biggest need?
Interior offensive line, biggest need. They've got safety 3's been fixed. You've got Roquan. You expect Buchanan to be back. That covers the middle.
At some point, yeah.
I'm assuming that Matabike will be back.
But you need insurance, so it's still a need. But yeah,
that's interior defensive tackle is definitely a need, but not above guard. I would say right now, interior offensive lineman and tight end, with the former of those two being the greatest need.
I was just about to say, I think that people are sleeping on how big of a need tight end is.
Yeah.
Again, I still put interior offensive line first. And I think there's a case for it just to have insurance for Matabike. But I don't understand why more people aren't nervous about the tight end position and how little there is there. Even it's funny because even people were like, is Smythe going to make the team? I think he will, but I've seen people wonder if he will based off of the way his contract was set up.
Yeah.
I mean, again, he had 11 targets last year.
He doesn't catch the ball. Yeah,
he doesn't catch the ball.
He can, but he doesn't.
You lost Likely and you lost Kolar, and Mark Andrews is only getting older. Tight end is a need. I'm not putting it above offensive line, but I think it's right there with the interior defensive line.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. People are funny in the live chat. Just answer the question. Well, she just asked me something off the cuff. I need to think about it.
Yeah,
I need to think about it.
Yeah,
I know it's hilarious.
I appreciate that.
It's easier said than done when you're not in front of the camera, right, guys? But and then hey, just to finish up what we said that we would discuss now, and we just didn't get into it too much. But the Kenyon Sadiq drop rate is something, as we put a bow on that opening conversation, right? That is a knock on him. It's close to 10% based on the numbers that I saw. And so, hey, a lot goes into that. Do you have that in his blurb here?
Well, yeah, the blurb. Let me bring up this blurb. It's really small. Do I have glasses? Daniel Jeremiah spoke to that. Daniel Jeremiah, again, he has him ranked number 13 overall in his top 50. He says Sadiq is a short, muscled-up tight end with outstanding speed and athleticism. At Oregon, he primarily aligned attached or in the slot, but he also saw some reps out wide and in the backfield. He's very explosive in his release, and he's able to separate vertically on seam/wheel routes. He excels on quick screens where he can display his dynamic run after catch skills. He needs to improve his dependability as a pass catcher. There were too many easy would-be catches that were dropped during the 2025 season. I love his competitiveness and tenacity as a blocker. He latches on, runs his feet, and works to finish. Overall, Sadiq lacks height and consistent hands, but he's a versatile, explosive weapon with toughness. So yes, the knock would be his consistent hands.
Okay. We have seen some guys that have struggled in the same department in recent seasons at this position go on to have NFL success. I have a note in front of me here that his drop rate would be the third worst mark for a first round or second round tight end since 2018. Luke Musgrave, Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki, and Irv Smith Jr. all had 6% or above, 6.8% or above in terms of drop rate. So it's not a be-all, end-all, but as DJ noted, it is something to keep in mind. And the Ravens obviously will have to evaluate that and calculate the risk versus rewards there.
Yep, it's part of the equation.
Yep.
I will say, catch rate can be fixed. I don't know about some of the other things that he's got going on. You can't teach somebody else how to be as fast and as strong and as big and run out. You know what I mean? Some of those things can be taught. Some of the other things can't be.
Yep.
So that's kind of what you're looking at.
Totally.
And people are wondering, short. He called him short. It's 6'3". He's 6'3". I guess short-ish for tight end, right? How tall is Mark Andrews? No,
good question.
Mark Andrews.
Maybe
6'5".
6'5". Yeah, 6'5".
I bet Isaiah Likely was up there.
He's right around there too. Oh yeah.
He was 6'4". I don't know why I thought
Isaiah
Likely.
Pretty sure Charlie's 6'6" or 6'7". So
he's 6'6". Yeah.
They had a basketball team in that room last year,
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's one of the reasons why it's again, he's not a tight end only. Yeah. Now, if you're talking about 6'3", and then you put him out at X, and then it's well, now we're talking because he's faster than AJ Brown and a lot of other guys. So
thanks for being with us today, guys. If you could on the way in, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell. You can consider becoming a channel member or gift-giving membership this offseason. We'll get to super chats right after this. I want to say thanks to Primary Residential Mortgage for the continued support of our program. And if you're getting a tax refund from the IRS this year, what if you used it to buy a home instead of spending it? It could help cover a down payment, closing costs, paying off debt to boost buying power, or maybe even your moving expenses. Your refund isn't just extra cash. It could be your first step towards building long-term wealth. Closing costs and fees may still apply, but if you have more questions, you want to learn more, give our friends a call at 410-663-2222. 410-663-2222. You can find your dream home today, discover your home buying potential, and all that and more available to you this month, including a $100 gift card giveaway that we will randomly announce coming up next week as we close down the month. And as always, if you want to enter yourself in, you can do so by clicking on the link that we have included in our show notes. If you're watching in real time right now, it's a pinned comment in our live chat. Comment on the Instagram post with the hashtag Vault. Tag 3 friends you'd buy a house with. Follow them at PRMI Mid-Atlantic, which is where this post is. Subscribe to the Vault on YouTube with your notifications on. And if you want to go the extra mile, scan the QR code or just copy and paste the Google Forms link. Fill it out in less than 30 seconds. We'll easily be able to reach you should you win. Super chats on this Wednesday. Jake got us started earlier on. The Jets YouTube extraordinaire in front of the program, and that brings us to Dre Dog for you.
Says Bobby and Sarah, love y'all. Remember, you have not worked as hard as you have to become who you are, just to hide who you are. Let your light shine bright. I like that.
Beautiful message from Dre Dog as per usual.
Right. Do you think we're hiding ourselves at all, Dre Dog? That's the follow-up question.
I got to think that that's more for the public's consumption.
Okay, just kind of like a general idea. Let us know, Dre Dog.
Dre, you could let us know if that's not the case. That might be me thinking positively. 97G. Is there a chance he falls to us in the second? No,
but maybe trade back. Maybe trade back and get him.
Yeah, the Ravens' second round pick G is 45. So that'd be a pretty rich, or excuse me, that'd be a pretty free fall, if you will. That'd be a
Dramatic,
free fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd have to, like, I'm not wishing this upon him. It would need, like, he'd have to get injured between now and then, kind of like what we saw happen with the Jabbo.
At a pro day. No,
not wish
horrific.
that. Let's not wish that on Sadiq.
Pro day. Just does not get any. You cannot get any closer to your draft day than a pro day injury. That's brutal. BME 612 for you.
We can't be Super Bowl bound with 2 potential rookies at offensive line. Sign another vet, guard center, draft athletic weapons for LJ, draft a guard center in the 3rd or 4th, Sadiq the Freak at number 14. So he's on board with it.
Yeah, okay. So sign another veteran guard and center. So they've done that in the last couple of weeks. We don't know if they're going to be camp bodies or actual legit contenders to make the 53. But Javon Gwynn comes over from Atlanta. Danny Pinter comes over from Indy. You've got Corey Bullock, who's the undrafted rookie that will have a case to be made this summer. And then from there, it's looking like he wants more. And also 3rd and 4th round day 2 and 3 picks. Thanks, BME 612. That brings us to the king. He says, are we closer to a Super Bowl with a good offensive line or a tight end too? This isn't even a discussion. I bet this is why Lamar isn't re-signing. EDC needs to be serious. So, King, I was actually talking to you a couple minutes ago when I said that there's this urgency that I'm seeing in the chat with this feeling that you have to put the team in a box to fix the offensive line at 14 when it can be fixed outside of that with 10 other picks, with free agency, with development, with Dwayne Ledford, with a legitimate competition at both guards. And obviously, the elephant in the room is what they might do at center, which, as Sarah noted a couple minutes ago, is the most significant change, knowing that you lost a Pro Bowler. So I was actually talking to you. I feel the urgency from you. I don't fault you for it. I just disagree with it.
Just a couple of things on here. Edie, you think that Lamar isn't re-signing because me and Bobby are talking about doing a player profile on Kenyon Sadiq?
No, I think he's probably just assuming that if they pick a tight end.
But like that's what's being projected here is like we're gonna do so many player profiles. We've done some on Ioane. We've done one on Fano. We're doing another player profile for a guy that could be a target. And now listen, I 1000% agree, and I have criticized EDC for what he trotted out on the field at the 2 guard positions last year. I think it was a major flaw in his roster construction last year. Major. And I think if you give him a grade or whatever, that's a major drop in his grade because of it. I also think you're reducing Kenyon Sadiq to tight end 2. We just talked about what he is. We talked about him. I mean, you can call him a tight end 2, or you could call him a matchup nightmare. You could call him a versatile tight end / X wide receiver. You could call him a freakish athlete, like whatever label you want to put on him. But I do think you're reducing him. Now, again, and then the last thing I just want to say, yeah, if I had to choose between tight end 2 versus the offensive line to win a Super Bowl, it's the offensive line. Clearly. But this has to be much more complex and deeper analysis on what you think is there in the draft and how things could fall. Like if everybody just said, oh, I'm going to draft based off of what's going to, you know what I mean? Like that line, it's too simplified in my view of how you make that decision. So just to reiterate, I still would take Ioane or Fano over Sadiq at 14, but I'm not boxing myself in.
T. Nargo with another pretty darn good story of development. Says Ravens drafted Marshall Yanda 3rd round in 2007. Just saying. So I mentioned Ben Powers earlier on. Obviously, the more renowned player, the future Hall of Famer in Marshall Yanda, deserves to be mentioned as well. He's kind of the obvious one and maybe even the outlier, being that he will be in Canton one day. So that's why I didn't necessarily say him in terms of development.
Right.
But hey, a 3rd rounder, there was some development there. But when you also are a 3rd rounder, there's some more lofty expectations that you come in with.
A 3rd rounder at guard is actually one of the top guards in the draft.
Correct, which is why I didn't bring up his name.
Yeah.
But But I appreciate the sentiment there, T Nargo.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you guys for being with us on this Wednesday. Partner, where to next?
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the secondary and some moving pieces. Like there's a lot of returning pieces for sure. They've obviously added a new free safety to be able to free up Kyle Hamilton. But there's still a lot of like question marks, I think, surrounding Marlon Humphrey. It seems pretty clear by now that Marlon Humphrey is staying, okay? Even though there's still some outlets saying, oh, he could be traded this and that. But we're all still curious if he took a pay cut. And then I'm also curious how all these pieces are going to work together in a Jesse Minter defense. So what I'm going to do is, again, I really enjoyed Ken McCusic's show the other day. And I've got a couple clips of him and Vass. I don't know if you guys follow Vass. He's on Twitter. If you like Googled Vass Ravens Twitter, he'll come up. It's at Vasilis Lerico. So he's sitting here talking with Ken McCusic. I wanted to know whose voice that was. So first they talk about whether or not Marlo has gotten a pay cut. And then they'll talk a little bit about how all these pieces are going to fit together.
Surprising in aggregate that Hill was not cut. They may have already agreed to another number with him as well.
Sorry, they also wonder if Justice Hill got a pay cut. So that kind of opens it up. Wanted to lay out that foundation. Justice Hill and Marlon Humphrey.
Well, that's possible, although his savings was less. And the Humphrey, I've heard it said, I've heard it opined that he's already agreed to a restructure a new number for 26, which would not surprise me.
Right. And there's no incentive to publicize that, that doesn't help the team, doesn't make the team look good. It certainly doesn't make the player look good. So sometimes those come to light later on.
Yes.
A couple weeks after.
Real good point. Like Humphrey, you have to decide about, what his status is going to be, whether you're going to move him in terms of position, whether he's only going to be a slot guy, might only play in dime situations, might be a guy you don't have in your starting plans, but they've got to figure out with those 5 guys what they have. And they've got to do it amidst having other talent that's joining them that's going to be young. So it's going to be a very difficult process. Mickens, this will be his biggest challenge as a coach, is try to A, develop these guys, but B, just choose among them. Who are you going to really give the opportunity to? Keon Martin played reasonably well in some opportunities last year, and so did Tampa. So they probably have the inside track, but Longerbeam and Kone were guys who lost the whole year. And Robinson is a guy who spent the whole year on the practice squad, which, by the way, is a good thing because it's a pretty clear indication the Ravens still like him.
I sort of have a feeling that Humphrey's going to be primarily a slot, but if what Rod Woodson said about technique holds true, he could maybe rebound on the outside.
Hey, so you stick into that on Humphrey as a slot. I just want to take a slight sidebar here because I don't see Humphrey really sticking as a pure slot only in dime, because I do see Hamilton being the full-time slot. And the acquisition of Jalen Hawkins is a pretty clear indicator of that you acquire a free safety who exactly meets the team's need. If those 3 guys are healthy, they're playing every snap. I mean, Hawkins is going to be, Hawkins will be out there. He'll play some base defense, and he won't be on the field for that. But Hawkins will be I would think the free safety or the split field guy, but there's kind of an indication that they're moving Starks back to strong safety with this. Mm-hmm. And if they do that, then there's no doubt about Hamilton being on the field.
I think there's going to be a lot of interchangeability. So I could see Humphrey as the primary slot nickel when they're in
dime,
standard normal nickel or dime. And then he could also be this cornerback 3 on the boundary if Wiggins or Awuzie get nicked up.
All right. So Bobby, this is interesting because Ken's wondering if everybody's healthy, how much playing time is Marlon going to have? Because when he's talking about the addition of veteran safety Jalen Hawkins, he's your free safety. Malachi's your strong safety. And that does free up Kyle Hamilton, who you'd think, if those 2 safeties are on the field, would be in the slot, which is where we typically say Marlon Humphrey's best spot is these days. And so obviously he can also play outside, although he hadn't played as well. And so you can never have enough corners. Somebody's bound to get hurt. Wiggins or Cheeto Bay. Like those guys can get hurt. So it's not like you want to get rid of cornerbacks. So I have no doubt that Humphrey is going to be a big part of the defense and the secondary. But if everybody's healthy, it does seem like his playing time could be cut quite a bit.
Well, especially if there's not some adjustments made here. And you heard them mention our interview with Rod from Radio Row in San Francisco. And so I thought I'd just in case folks didn't remember what he was referring to there, Rod told us that he felt like, hey, there was a conscious Ravens defensive coaching decision that was made in 2025, and it wasn't to Marlon's benefit. He said, quote, I know this past year they went back to the old school way of playing him on the low hip, which I'm not a fan of. We got quite a few deep balls thrown against us because of that. Think about the fade from Adam Thielen, who had been released by, was it Minnesota? Yeah, Pittsburgh picks him up. I think he just retired, didn't he? And so that wasn't one of Marlon's best moments there in the latter half of the season, in the closing stages. Rod went on to say, I think Humphrey has a lot still left in his tank. I just think asking him to play on the low hip put him in a bad spot, especially when you don't have the same foot speed as you had 4 or 5 years ago. That's a defensive coaching adjustment, a technical adjustment. It didn't benefit the group. Marlon had probably the worst part of it because his foot speed was not the same as it was a couple years ago, which is natural. What's also become natural for Marlon, Sarah, that when he is out there and available, even despite some of these now father time, if you will, challenges when it comes to foot speed, hasn't taken away his ability to find the football. Led the team in turnovers created this past season. I believe it was 4 interceptions too. So, can he continue to adjust as needed accordingly as his body ages and he ain't getting any younger, but he can still be impactful. We've seen that from guys over the years at all kinds of different positions that can recalibrate and adjust on the fly and figure out new ways to impact the game. And I'm still a believer that he can be that guy because he's shown it. And if you think about the resilience that he showed last year playing with a pin that was placed in his finger, I think he's still got good football left in the tank.
Well, if he does have another rebound season like he did in 2024, then he'll find his way out onto the field. Man, I do wonder though if he's taking a pay cut. So his cap is $26.2 million. The next in the cornerback room is Chidobe Awuzie at $5 million. Nate Wiggins still on his rookie contract is 3.5. TJ Tampa, who is he going into his 3rd year?
Yep.
So there's somebody that you want to see take a step forward. You want to see that the Ravens are actually developing some of their guys. It just feels like they haven't been able to develop their cornerbacks, like some of the ones that they have in the past. Bilal Kone.
Part of the problem with that is some of these guys aren't available to be developed. TJ came in his rookie year and had that double sports hernia procedure that's totally sidelined him for the first part of the valuable part of his rookie year. Bilal Kone, friend of the program, goes down. By the way, he's training right down the road from me. I need to reach out to him so we can have him back on the show. Bilal missed all his entire rookie season because of the gruesome preseason injury. And by the way, that was a pretty darn good play in the end zone, if you remember the play that he went down. Who knows what could have come from his rookie season had he remained healthy. And then I believe Robert Longerbeam was banged up as well at times. So,
and then you've got Marquise Robinson, who apparently impressed a lot of people, but was on the practice squad all year and has returned.
So that's that. So 3 of the 4 that we just mentioned have had considerable issues that have set them back availability-wise. So that hurts. That doesn't help.
Yeah. Well, and so it'll be interesting. Like, with Minter and Mickens, I'm with you. I wouldn't put it past that Humphrey could have a bounce back year. And at the same time, with the way Ken just laid it all out, he has to have a significant one to take off one of those guys. Where it's like, it's not a question of whether he should play. It's like, who do you take off? So if Awuzie is having as good of a year as last year at outside corner, Marlowe's got to beat that standard. Same with Wiggins. And then really he's got to beat a combination of Jalen Hawkins Malachi Starks, and then Kyle Hamilton and say, oh, I should be on there instead of those three at that nickel spot, that slot position. So, but it's interesting because Pro Football Focus put together a list of every single team's best trade commodity. I don't think they're saying this isn't like, ooh, I heard that the Ravens are shopping Marlon Humphrey. It's not that. They just put together who they think is everybody's best trade commodity. And John Kosko named Marlon Humphrey. He says the Ravens have a roster capable of competing for a Super Bowl in 2026. And with recent investments in the secondary, Humphrey could emerge as a valuable trade asset. His experience and playmaking ability still carry weight despite a step back in 2025. Humphrey's coverage versatility and physicality have produced 80-plus PFF grades in his peak seasons. With him entering the final year of his contract and set to turn 30 this summer, Baltimore could look to move on and recoup multiple assets to strengthen its overall depth. Bobby, do you think that the Ravens are going to trade Marlon Humphrey?
Nope.
I don't even think there's a chance.
No, I don't. And there's really not a ton more to add there. I think he's going to be a lifelong Raven. And I think we're entering the period soon here of him realizing that in order to be a lifelong Raven, that might come with some sacrifice, both with positional flexibility and maybe financially as well, even though that $4 million roster bonus just hit a couple weeks ago. And I tell you what, Sarah, I think he has a lot left to give inside. And based on what I saw from Cheeto last year, it is his job to lose opposite Nate Wiggins on the outside. He was that reliable for them last year. How about what he did against his former team? How about what he did against Jamar Chase? He was their best press corner last year, and he defended
the most consistent.
He defended Jamar Chase admirably. I think it's his job to lose. And then, hey, if there's a budding competition, a spirited one, then they're going to be better for it. But based on his 2025 tape, his job to lose on the outside, in my opinion.
And this time the secondary should have an improved pass rush. Not just should. They will.
Man.
Put Trey Hendrickson in town.
And that's something. That's kind of that's that domino that hopefully falls that will make their lives a whole heck of a lot easier. In coverage. I mean, gosh. You know, it hasn't exactly been easy being a Ravens DB in recent seasons, Sarah.
Well, and Cheeto played with Trey Hendrickson.
He did.
And I think he was on the Lounge podcast that he was like, oh, it's so nice to play with him. He's like, because as DBs, we can't be perfect all the time. And he said one time he got beat and he's like, oh, crap. And thought that like he was just going to get cooked. And then he turns around and the opposing quarterback was on their back. And Trey Hendrickson is like, he has his arms raised and he's like, thank you, Trey. Thank you.
Think about this. Who had a career? This is not a trick question. Who had a career year when the Ravens had a historical year, aside from the postseason, as a pass rushing unit, as a sack artist unit, as a simulated pressure and takeaways and all that good stuff under Mike McDonald in 23 as a defensive back? Brandon Stevens had a career year. And what happened in 24 to Brandon Stevens and the Ravens defense? They lost Mike McDonald and they lost their identity. Yes, they lost Jadeveon Clowney and his 10 sacks are darn near close to it. Yes, there were steps taken back by injuries and Eddie Jackson and you name it. But Brandon Stevens had a career year in 23, and that's no disrespect to him. He's a success story in this league. He was a college running back.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So best wishes to him in New York. I didn't watch much of what happened to him in year one with the Jets.
Can't imagine anybody year one with the Jets goes super well.
Well, especially when the all-pro gets traded at the deadline and Sauce Gardner, and all of a sudden you're really on an island instead of opposite him. You know, essentially enjoying the fruits of the labor of being with Sauce Gardner. So it's not to disrespect him. It's to say you put a unit out there that's vicious at the point of attack, that gets home, that allows you to live more freely on the outside and more comfortably, then yeah, you can have a year like Brandon did in 23.
Should we get to some more super chats before quick hits?
Sure. Let's see here.
I think we are right here.
Thank you. Ravens 2 to bowl. He says, I love Mekhi Lemon. Tape don't lie. Screw the interviews. He got plenty of blowback, or at least dialogue around that whole stare off, the stare down that he did in Indy. Nightmare Kilo 84 for you.
He says, same argument with the offensive line in the later rounds can be used for tight ends. Didn't Mark Andrews get drafted in the 3rd? No such thing as drafting a guard too high. I think that was more my point, is everybody's like, you can get a tight end later on, and you definitely can, which is why I'm almost comfortable with either. But I also don't think the cupboard is bare after the first round for offensive line, which I think is Nightmare's point here.
In comes Fem. I owe him a call back. Sorry, I missed you there yesterday, Fem.
Oh, I already called him back. Clearly, I'm a better friend to him than you.
Everything good? I figured it wasn't an emergency.
No, everything's good.
There wasn't a text.
No.
And I was having one of those kind of nights. Fem, I just, my car was run into today by my neighbor accidentally.
It's not funny. I'm so sorry, but for some reason I laughed right there.
It's fine. It's harmless, but like, what was she doing? And then if she's watching, it's not a problem. I already told her it's not a problem. They watch the show sometimes. It's all good. We'll get it fixed.
And she texted you right away, right?
She did. She did. Yep. It was like a pro, that's what you do when you're a good person. And then an hour later, I realized that Tilly has fleas. So anyway, needless to say,
there's your morning.
I have a couple people to call back. Femi says, sign a starting caliber guard or Zeitler. Game on. Or both, he's saying. I'm not sure. If not, Fano or Venga. Love style, meaning Sonny Styles. Kenyon Sadiq. All third down playmakers, meaning on both sides of the ball. Bain maybe is there. 5 starting centers are available in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. Sadiq, his youth, X ability, tight end, run game. Lamar loves tight ends. A lot of good stuff there from Fem.
So much chucked into one. Bobby, and I think actually what he said right there, where there was 5 starting centers in rounds 2 and 3, I think that most is what most has been like, okay, I'm moving out of the box I put myself in. Yeah. I mean, it's partially like realizing how good Sadiq could be, but it's also that like I have been so traumatized by the interior offensive line, and it does look really bad. But there also isn't like this pure center. Like if Fano were drafted, he's never played center.
Yeah.
And then Ioane is been a guard.
Yeah.
And so a part of me has been like, okay, well, let me look at these later rounds and see if there's starters there. And I think I love that Femi made that point, because that's what helped me move off of it, that it was just like first round offensive lineman or bust. Yeah. That doesn't mean that the need still isn't there, but it has to be a strategic draft strategy than just like first round offensive lineman or bust, and we're not going to the Super Bowl.
Agreed. He made the most of his character limit, didn't he? Thanks, Fem. Appreciate you. Sod Blitz is celebrating 1 year of support with us as a channel VAULTRON. What's up, Sod?
Says Marlowe is a Raven for life because he's been flexible on the field and with his contract. If they cut him, they're still going to pay him for years. Well, he hasn't been flexible with his contract yet. They've restructured in the past, but they can just do that. He gets more money up front when it restructures. He loses nothing. Now, everybody's been opining that he may have already had a pay cut, and it hasn't been announced yet. And if that's true, then I agree with you. Then he's been flexible with his contract, and he wants to stay a Raven for life. So, but there has been no news that he's taken a pay cut.
Sod, appreciate it. Christian Reed says Voorhees was a 2nd-round projection before his combine injury. Excited to see what Ledford can get out of him. So, look, to his point, a couple years ago, Andrew out of USC is a highly touted prospect, and then he goes and tears his ACL while he was in Indy. Well, what does he do the next day? He crutches up to the bench press and puts up 38 reps of 225. Now, does that tell the full story? No, but it certainly shows you a thing or two about his fortitude and his character, and maybe to Christian's point here, he'll be one of those late blooming guys that gets a new change of scenery and a fresh start under a new program if he can stay healthy. That's been a struggle of his as well. Remember, he opened the door a couple years ago going down. McCary closed the door shut, and Andrew never had a chance to kind of recover there. He did get a chance to last year and was subpar in a lot of categories that we've discussed throughout the offseason. Thanks, Christian. And Pete's with us today.
Says a tight end can't get thrown to if LJ is always sacked. Well, we agree.
They'll figure it out. They can figure that out.
That's not the discussion here, but I agree.
Thanks, nephew. Super chats. Lead us in.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me hit you with the news that Joe Flacco is coming back for what season is this? Is he in 20 yet, Bobby?
No, not yet. It was 2008. So what? That's
okay. So 19th
season. Yeah, 19th. Oh, same on Harbaugh.
Into 19th.
This will both be their 19th season. His as a coach, Joe as a player.
So he signed for his 19th season, and he's going back to the Cincinnati Bengals. He will back up Joe Burrow. There are some other signings we'll get to in just a minute. But first, at his press conference, Ben Baby here, who covers the Cincinnati Bengals, is he ESPN?
Yep.
Okay, so he is ESPN, and he asks Joe Flacco how his thoughts were about how the quarterback market and that cycle kind of played out this year. And as Ben Baby says, Joe Flacco did not hold back his true feelings, which is why we love Joe.
I wish I was a guy somewhere. And I think teams are dumb for not having me be that guy. I feel like I have unfinished business. That's part of why I'm still here and playing. And not being one of those guys to go sign somewhere, yeah, it pisses me off a little bit. But at the same time, like, I'm very happy to be here. I feel like I can help a team win. And yeah, it may be in a different role here, but I do still think I can help this team win in that role.
He's ticked off and he thinks teams are dumb for not giving him a shot as the starting quarterback. I mean, he has been pretty good.
Welcome to the unfiltered phase of Joe Flacco. He'll turn 42 in January, still playing at a level that warrants a roster spot, Sarah. And look, we have talked at length recently about Joe Burrow's injury nagging seasons that have plagued him throughout his time. And if that continues to follow him, this is a job that's maybe worth the chance that Joe's taking here, knowing that he feels like he still has more left to give as a starter in this league. We'll see. Burrow's going to be back and healthy and ready to go by week 1, but that was one of the many moves made yesterday at the quarterback position, including Zach Wilson to New Orleans, Trevor Siemian to Atlanta, Andy Dalton will go to backup Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. How about that? Andy Dalton and Joe Flacco still playing football in this league at their ripe ages of, what's Andy? Joe is 41, and Andy is probably late 30s, right? Yep, he'll be 39 in October. So good for those guys.
There you go.
Crosby.
Oh, baby. Some people in the chat are going to be so angry right now because we have a quick hit on Max Crosby. You guys are welcome to hit the mute button for just a couple minutes if you'd like. But
Baltimore Ravens Vault at gmail.com. If you guys want to come up with your own quick hits to send to us every morning, then maybe we'll listen. Huh?
It's funny because, Bobby, I would honestly just give this follow-up as a quick hit anyway because Max Crosby had words for Ravens fans. But there's also a part of me that it's like the chat trolls so badly every single day that maybe this isn't really meant to be a troll, but in a way that's like a secondary thing that comes from this for some of you that have trolled us and don't want to hear about this. Oh, shoot. Did I forget to bring in the video? No, I need the video. Hold on. Here we go.
Oh,
here's Max Crosby's message about the traffic that he hit and the 2-hour ride that he took to Baltimore. Covered what he said on his podcast. Like, the traffic thing was not a beef that we had with. We were like, yeah, who knows what can happen with traffic in the DMV.
We both lived in the area. Yes. There's no problem with that. It happens.
None. And I love how, like, my favorite comment of the day today might be from, is it Tish? Miss Fancy Pants, is that Tish? Tisha. She goes, I called him a B, not a liar. This whole thing is making me laugh.
Oh my gosh.
Here's the thing about Max Crosby. Even though I do think things have been misconstrued and the Ravens' integrity has been called into question, obviously, and he obviously, I said when his podcast came out, I was like, I appreciate that he didn't try to assign motives. He just gave his experience and he's extremely transparent. So like, I don't call him a liar at all. I think he is just as transparent as can be. And I have no ill will towards him. He was cracking me up in that. Now, if I could have a follow-up question with him though, because I don't think he's a liar, just based off of the reporting, both from ESPN and Jeff Zrebeck, where they said that Minter did meet with him within the first 5 minutes. And even Ryan McFadden here, and we played the clips originally where he definitely said he didn't meet the head coach and general manager until like 5 hours in. And even Ryan McFadden here points that out. He said he didn't meet with head coach Jesse Minter and Eric DeCosta until the end of the day. So that's all what we took from it. And then there's the note that he did meet with them. And so could it have been that he just didn't have that detail or whatever? I mean, he talked about his day for like 20 minutes. So could that have been brushed over? I don't know. But I do think that the way he had characterized it made it look like the Ravens. So when later he said, "Ooh, the energy was different when I saw Jesse Minter," my follow-up question would be like, well, was his energy different when you met him the first time earlier in the day? Because that plays into it a little bit. Because when he said their energy was different, everybody's like, oh, well, he already knew. And it's like, well, you did meet with them earlier in the day. Was that energy bad then? Because that could, reframe the narrative that people are having. But overall, yeah, I don't think he's a liar. I think he's funny. I think he's fun. But I would like to have that follow-up question with him.
Elsewhere, Ruben Bain, who we've spoken about, just tweeted this out yesterday. And what I mean by that, it was just a simple, no caption photograph of him showcasing some ridiculous bend. And you think about the angle that he's taken on this photo, and for the audio-only audience, trust me when I tell you that he is contorting his body at a ridiculous angle to make a vicious turn in a workout. It's pretty cool. And yeah, there's no caption needed at all. And what better way to continue to plug everything that Coach Coleman and Coach Evans and that entire film study community crew released last week, Sarah, and Coach came on to tell us about it. The draft signal, they're right up on Ruben, is that he's a 6'2", 263-pound, 21-year-old edge rusher. His top strength, insane burst off the line. Hand movement and reactions are instantaneous. Superb strength on contact. And they got Dwight Freeney, Terrell Suggs, and Lamar Woodley as the player comparison. So pretty cool there. Great snapshot of Miami edge rusher Ruben Bain. And tomorrow is opening day in Major League Baseball. The Orioles open it up. And Jesse Minter, a.k.a. Minter Splash, will be the guest splasher for the Orioles' first of 162 games. And this one's at Oriole Park. So fun to have baseball back, Sarah, America's pastime. And for Jesse, his first legit opportunity to have a forward-facing moment at one of the most storied ballparks in the land. Game 1 coming up tomorrow.
There we go. That'll be fun for Coach. Get in the community, meet some of these Baltimore fans. It'll be great.
Richard, Harris, and Kelly, thank you both for believing in what we're building. We appreciate the support that you guys give us on a monthly basis through Patreon, and we hope you guys are doing great. Patreon.com/Ravens Vault Podcast is where you can go to learn more. And hey, less than a week out for our giveaway. So if you haven't already done so, click on the link that's included in our show notes. It's at the top. If you're watching in real time on the way out here, click on the link that we have pinned in our live chat. If you go enter in to the primary residential mortgage gift card giveaway, you'll have $100 to spend at our merch line. So that's what's coming up there. And I think that just about does it for us, partner. We'll be back tomorrow, Thursday, 12 noon Eastern, as always, as we get ready to close down yet another week. A couple more episodes coming for you this week. And for Sarah, I'm Bobby. Thanks to Primary Residential Mortgage for the continued support of our program. And as always, Vaultrons, We appreciate you, and we'll catch up with you on Thursday here in